Hi friends, I'm Kim and I'm on a GLP-1 journey with Zepbound, and today we're talking about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's compounded GLP-1 medications. So I'm probably going to get some heat for this topic because it stirred up a lot of debate the last time I brought it up, but I think it's important we talk about it. So compounded GLP-1 medications versus the brand name products. If you've researched anything about GLP-1s, you already know compounded versions are generally much lower in cost than the branded versions, but is that the only difference? In today's video, we will be specifically focusing on compounded GLP-1s for weight loss and the concerns around them. But before we dive in, just a quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor. I am not a pharmacist, and I am most certainly not a lawyer. I did spend 20 years in big pharma clinical drug development, so I have some understanding. However, I'm adding to what I know by researching everything, and I'm also living this journey firsthand. So everything I share is for informational purposes only, so you can have a discussion with your healthcare team. Always, always, always talk to your healthcare provider before making any decisions. Now, let's go back in time to the year 2022. Semaglutide and tirzepatide had been approved by the FDA as injectable medications delivered through pre-filled pen devices under the brand names of Wegovy, Ozempic, Zepbound, and Mounjaro. These pens are what makes the medication easy to administer for patients by providing the correct dose in a convenient, ready-to-use format. Now, when these medications surged in popularity for weight loss and diabetes treatment, we started hearing about a shortage. But it wasn't the semaglutide or tirzepatide ingredients themselves that became scarce, but it was the physical pen injector devices that were in short supply. Post-COVID, supply chain issues and the drug manufacturers couldn't keep up with demand for the actual FDA-approved finished products, that is, the pens packaged with the ready-to-be-used drug. So because the finished branded injection pens were not commercially available, the FDA declared the drugs to be in shortage. Even though the raw APIs, that's short for active pharmaceutical ingredient, those raw APIs remained available, but patients couldn't access the FDA-approved version in the way it was specifically designed to be delivered, through the branded pre-filled injection pens. So a shortage was declared by the FDA. This allowed compounding pharmacies to legally produce injectable versions during the declared shortage, using the same APIs as their brand names. So for a while, compounding was a perfectly legal workaround. But things started to shift toward the end of 2024 and into 2025 when the FDA declares the shortage is officially over. So tirzepatide was removed from the FDA shortage list in October of 2024, and semaglutide came off the list in February of 2025. That matters because once a drug is no longer considered in shortage, compounding pharmacies are no longer legally allowed to produce it unless there is a very specific individualized medical need. The FDA also gave compounding facilities clear deadlines. For semaglutide, compounding had to stop by May of 2025. For tirzepatide, outsourcing facilities had a short grace period after October 2024, but traditional compounding had to end immediately. So then why are we still seeing some of these compounded versions being sold online or offered through telehealth providers? Because it's an ongoing legal battle. Some compounding pharmacies argue that their versions are unique because they add things like vitamin B12 or B6. Some may use different delivery methods like oral pills, nasal sprays, and I think I've seen sublingual drops. They claim these tweaks make the product different enough to be exempt from the FDA rule, but major pharmaceutical companies like Eli Lilly are pushing back hard. They raise concerns that this might be a way some compounders are navigating around the FDA's restrictions. So it's easy to point to Big Pharma as the big bad corporate guy in these situations. However, the reality is these compounded versions are not FDA approved, and that matters when it comes to safety, consistency, and oversight. The FDA has made it clear These compounded versions are simply not approved. The reason they aren't approved is because the FDA does not review compounded medications for safety, effectiveness, or quality in the same way it does for commercial brand name drugs. Historically, compounded drugs are made on a case-by-case basis for individual patients with specific needs that can't be met by the brand name and therefore are exempt from the standard drug approval process. So this is exactly why Eli Lilly and others have raised some valid concerns about compounded GLP-1s. It's because the compounded products have not undergone the same rigorous clinical trial processes and standards that are required to obtain FDA drug approval. Even if a compounded product uses one of the same active ingredients, like semaglutide or tirzepatide, the final compounded product has not been tested in clinical settings for safety or effectiveness. And this matters because does adding vitamin B12 or B6 to the formula impact the effectiveness of the compound? Is a GLP-1 nasal spray safe and effective? Who knows? In short, just because something is available doesn't mean it's safe, and it may come with unnecessary risks that might not be worth it when safer, regulated alternatives are available. Again, this is just my opinion, and I will encourage you to talk to your doctor to obtain their professional insight and recommendation to make the best decision for your situation. I'm certainly not here to judge anyone's choices. This is about helping you make an informed decision with your healthcare team. So is it ever legal to use a compounded GLP-1 now that the shortage is declared over? Of course, yes. There are some very valid reasons for compounding when FDA-approved options don't meet a patient's needs. First, a provider must determine that the already approved FDA version isn't appropriate for a particular patient. The compounded version must be made by a licensed pharmacy using approved APIs. It can't be the exact copy of the branded drug. So if your doctor writes a prescription for a semaglutide nasal spray because you can't tolerate injections, that can be a very valid option, as long as it's backed by a documented medical reason, not just for convenience or cost. So if you're currently using a compounded GLP-1 and are considering moving to an FDA-approved brand name, here are some talking points to bring to your medical provider. FDA-approved medications have gone through rigorous testing for safety, effectiveness, and consistency. You know exactly what you're getting in each and every dose. Also, adverse events are tracked and monitored. So if there's ever an issue, there is a formal system in place to catch it. In the US, the system is called MedWatch. It's the FDA's official reporting program for medication safety. Healthcare providers are required to report serious side effects or problems, which are then logged into a national database for tracking. This allows the FDA to identify trends, issue recalls, update warning labels, or investigate potentially harmful products. Compounded medications, however, are typically not subjected to the same level of oversight, which means risks from compounded medications may go entirely unnoticed and unaddressed. And you gain peace of mind knowing your treatment meets the highest standards of pharmaceutical care. Now, I know this can feel frustrating with so many options out there, and yes, the cost difference between brand name and compounded GLP-1s can be significant. Again, I'm not here to tell anyone what to do. This is simply background information to help you ask better questions and work with your provider. I think the good news is, though, there are more options than ever, and the GLP-1 landscape is really evolving quite fast. I'm hopeful that in the near future, people with metabolic disorders will have easier, more equitable access to these medications, and that we'll start recognizing them as essential treatments for chronic medical conditions, not luxury products or vanity aids. Keep advocating for yourself, keep learning, and if this video helped you, please like it and share it with someone else who's looking for clarity on this topic. Also, don't forget you can go and get a free copy of my GLP-1 tracker over on my website, glpwonderfullife.com. You can go and download that for free, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.